Hi guys, hope you're all okay. Welcome back to the channel. Thanks for joining me today. This is going to be a video on the Radioddity GD-77S. Okay guys, so this is the Radioddity GD-77S, and what we're going to do in this video is have a look at the radio itself. We'll go through some of the settings, some of the features, the specification. We'll have a look at programming, and of course we'll look at what you get inside the box as well. So this is the radio right in front of me here. This is the GD-77S, and it's very similar to the GD-77, but it doesn't have a screen, and it's more of a simplified version of the GD-77 radio. The GD-77 was released a few months back now, and this is sort of the next step in the family of radios on this line from Radioddity. So amateur radio isn't actually the target market for this radio. It's more designed for security, outdoor use. It has quite an easy operation because it doesn't have a display, so there's no confusion, although it can be used for amateur radio. So the idea is that it can be set up for someone who can't program or use more complicated radios. For example, someone using a single repeater for part of a security system or something like that, for an outdoor event, a marathon, things like that. So it's quite appealing for that sort of user. It's quite rugged as well. We've got buttons on the side here that change zones and modes. So you have like mode 1, mode 2, mode 3 and so on, and they are the zones on this radio, so they can be selected from these buttons on the side. With the rotary encoder on the top here, you can select your channels within that zone. So if you have 16 channels on a repeater, you can select your repeater on here and your 16 channels using that. It also has a voice prompt which can be programmed in as well, which I've got set to the orange button on the top, and that will give you the channel number, the receive frequency, the transmit frequency, the zone, time slot, colour code, DMR ID and power output as well, which is quite handy. So it doesn't have that screen, but this gives you a readout of exactly where you are in the radio. These can't be programmed from the front panel because, as you can see, there isn't one, so they must be programmed via a code plug. DMR ID also needs to be put in within the CPS software, and the software is available from the Radioddity website, which I'll put a link to in the description below. So GD-77 code plugs also work in these radios, and they come pre-programmed from Radioddity with FRS and GMRS frequencies in. Of course, these can be overwritten in the code plug programming software. The scan function on this supports both analog and digital mode. The buttons on the side here I've sort of already covered, but these can be customized, so they have a short key and a long key function, and you can edit these in the programming software to support a whole multitude of functions, and the repeater function supports both analog and digital mode in this radio as well. The programming cable with these radios is a driver-free programming cable, so it's just plug and play, and it's the Kenwood style like what you usually get on sort of Bofeng and then the other DMR radios such as TYT, Retivis and things like that. Programming software is really user-friendly as well, supports bulk editing on channels and contact ID, and you can import and export CSV files into and out of the software as well, and there's continuous support for software updates and firmware updates from the Radioddity website. Okay, so some of the specifications for this radio: it's a dual band radio, VHF and UHF. So VHF is 136 to 174 MHz and UHF is 400 to 470 MHz. It of course supports analog and digital DMR tier 2, so it's compatible with Motorola and all other good DMR radios such as your TYTs, Retivis, things like that. It has the high and low power settings of 1 watt and 5 watt. And then just for programming, it can hold 256 contacts. Receive group lists, it can hold 76, and each receive group list can hold 32 contacts. The scan list, it can hold 64 scan lists, and each scan list can hold 32 channels. Zone capacity, it'll hold 32 zones, and each zone can hold 16 channels, and the channel total capacity is 1024. Battery capacity is 2,200 milliamp hours, and it's a lithium ion 7.4 volt battery, which just clips on like so. Okay, so in the box, as well as the radio and battery itself, you also get a charging dock, which is actually very, very similar, if not at the same, is the TYT MD380 charging base there, and that has a input of 12.5 volts and output of DC 8.4 volts. We've also got a power adapter here, 3-pin power adapter, which plugs into the mains for charging that the radio up through that base. We've also got a longer dual band antenna here, should you need it. We've got a little earpiece here which has got like a curly flexible cord on it, which is quite nice. And then of course we've got screws and the belt clip. So assembly of the radio, very straightforward like any other. Battery just slides onto the back there. Antenna just screws onto the right hand side, which I actually thought was unusual. You usually get them on the left. Some radios have them in the centre, but this antenna's on the right hand side, which I thought was different. Just again on the outside we've got our programmable buttons here, and we've got a rugged PTT. On the top we've got the emergency button there, which can be programmed to a multitude of functions. We've got the on, off and volume button, and then we've got the channel select button. On this side we've got a speaker mic port here, which takes the Kenwood style speaker mic plugs, and of course a programming cable. We've got a little label here that you can put the owner on, so you could assign that to actually a number, so you can give the radio a number and give it to somebody. And then the battery port's on the back. Battery to take off, you just click the button there and slide that down. Really straightforward. So design on this, guys, quite a rugged feel to it. Doesn't creak and moan in your hand like some cheaper radios, so quite good. What you'd expect from this, it is quite a rugged radio. So again, just going with the sort of outdoor security warehouse work sort of thing rather than amateur radio. I think this is going to survive a little bit of punishment, within reason of course. We've got the speaker on the front there, and the little microphone hole is in that middle grill there. So yeah, I think it's definitely sort of more appealing to the non-amateur radio user. But having said that, you can use it to support amateur radio repeaters and of course Dmr Simplex. So what we'll do now, guys, is we'll have a look at the laptop and we'll go through the programming software. I'm not going to give a fully detailed tutorial on how to program this thing. I'm just going to look at the software itself and just give you some sort of top line so you can see how this is programmed. Okay, so we'll look at programming. So you need to visit the Radioddity website to get the latest software. I'll leave a link in the description below, but you can download the software that you need from this list here, and the updated firmware and programming software are all in this place here, so you know where to find it. And yeah, as I say, this is the latest version that you can get here, so all in one place, nice and easy. So you just download the radio programming software and install it, and then all you need to do is plug in the USB programming cable into your computer, plug the other end of the cable into your radio and make sure the radio is switched on, and then you can launch the programming software. So this is the programming software here. Now I've already opened my code plug, but all you need to do is click on program, click on read, and that will read the code plug from the radio, or you can just start from scratch. So as I say, I've already got mine loaded in here, and for those who are familiar with programming DMR radios, you'll know that all the software is very, very similar. The thing I like about Radioddity software is it gives you a full description in the help view below, so you know exactly what each function does, because it can be a minefield and you can look and think, oh, you know, what does that mean? There's hundreds and hundreds of features and settings you can change and you don't even know what they mean. So it gives you a brief sort of summary in the bottom there. So you can see there it's showing the minimum frequency of the radio. If I click in there, shows the maximum frequency for both bands. So it's really quite a handy little feature to this software. A lot of the other DMR programming softwares don't have this, so it is quite a nice change. So as with all these menu items, they'll open up a separate box and you can just close these as and when, and whatever you put in them will still stay in there. So we've got basic information, which has got the frequency range, it's got the model name, and all sorts of bits of information there. There's nothing to actually change in this section here. We've got general settings, so we've got the radio's name. You can change your radio ID, so I've got my DMR mark ID in there, and there's all sorts of other features and settings in here, but again, if you're just not sure what one is, click it and it will tell you below exactly what this function does. Nice and handy. So we can close that off,
If we look at buttons, this is where you can map your side keys. We've got side key 1, which is the black one, side key 2, which is the blue one, and we've got the top key, which is the orange one. And again, there's loads of different functions you can set these to do on a short press and a long press. Pretty straightforward. And again, just close out of that. We've got text message here, where you can add pre-programmed text messages, so you can just select them in the radio and send them. Now, of course, this radio doesn't allow text messaging because you can't access that. This software is sort of a modified version for the GD-77S, which is based around the GD-77. So if you have a GD-77 normal radio with a screen, or you have a Bofeng RD5R, that's what you would do with that feature. So it's to add pre-programmed text messages in, but of course we can't message on this radio because we don't have a screen. We've got privacy there, so you can put privacy keys in there just to make it a little bit more secure. Signaling system, so you've got your DTMF signaling system set up here, and again, all these features have an explanation in the bottom below, but we're not going to touch any of that. All we're really interested in is contacts. So again, DMR programming can be quite complicated until you get the hang of it, but you have to make sure that your digital contacts, your receive group lists, your zones and your channels all tie into one another. So you've got digital contacts here, so if we look at talk group 9 local, you can put the name of it in, you can put the ID of the talk group in, and then you can add as many talk groups as you need to into here. So I've got basically an overview of most of the used talk groups that are around. If we go into receive group lists, you can edit these as you need them. So I've just got one for GB7MR here, and I've inputted most of the talk groups I've got programmed in except the YSX one, because you can only program 32 in, and I've got 33. So you can select which ones you want from there, and you can delete them or add them as and when, and you can name it at the top. If we look at zones, we've got our zones here. So these are what you select with the buttons on the side. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So if we look at zone number 1, we've got GB7MR. So I've got 16 channels for GB7MR programmed in there. If we look at Dmr Simplex, Dmr Simplex, we've got the 6 Dmr Simplex channels put into that zone there. So when you select a zone, those 6 frequencies or those 6 channels are going to appear within that zone, and you can select each channel from the knob on the top of the radio. And again, you can just add and delete them, and you can rename, or you can actually reorder them in the software here should you want to. 7cm analog repeaters we've got listed there in zone number 3. We've got 2 meter analog repeaters here, then we've got PMR 446. So you can see again I've added the 16 channels for PMR 446 into that zone. So think of these as sort of banks on a radio or banks on a scanner. Bank number 1, bank number 2, bank number 3, 4 and 5 and so on, and that just keeps a group of frequencies in one place. And then the most important bit, we've got channels. So if we look at a DMR repeater channel that we've got put in here, you can see we are a digital channel. We've put the name in, which is GB7MR, and this is talk group 9 local slot 1. We've got the receive frequency, the transmit frequency, you can set your power level, you can select your squelch level, so normal or tight, you can add it to a scan list, you can add it to a receive group list, we can change our colour code here, and again you'll see, as I say, when we're looking at this, these settings, there's a full explanation in the bottom of what they do, so if you actually take the time to have a good read and a good play around with the software, you actually can't really go wrong. We've put our contact in because this channel is talk group 9 local. If I want to go on talk group 235, I can just select talk group 235 from the list, wherever it is. There we go, and we can change that. So again, really straightforward. And we've got our repeater slot there. If we look at a digital simplex channel, very similar thing here. We've got the digital channel programmed in. The only difference is that we're transmitting and receiving on the same frequency. There's not much change. You can see we use colour code 1 and slot 1 because that's what Dmr Simplex uses, and it's talk group 9 local. So for all of those DH1, DH2, DH3, 4, 5 and 6, everything is the same. The only thing that changes is the frequency. Pretty straightforward. Analog channel, an analog simplex channel, you can see there we select analog here. We've got the name in. I've only named these so I know where I am in the software. Obviously there's no screen so you can't see the name, but I've just done it for my own sort of peace of mind while I'm programming. You can see we've got the transmit and receive frequency in, the power level. Now you'll see the digital side of things are blanked out on here, so you can't edit anything that's digital because we're on an analog channel. The analog side of things is now lit up, so you can select your bandwidth, you can select your receive tone or your transmit tone for CTCSS. So again, nice and easy, nice and straightforward. I actually prefer this type of programming software to sort of your chirps and things like that. I just think it's easy to get into the detail. Chirp is a fantastic piece of software, don't get me wrong, but I just like the way these are laid out. And then finally, an analog repeater. You can see we've got the name of the repeater programmed in, we've got the output, the input, and again the only thing that changes on here that's different than a simplex channel is the fact that we've got a transmit tone of 82.5 because it's a repeater. So that's a programming software, guys. Again, as I say, I'm not going to do a massive detailed talk through on programming because it's something that you need to learn if you're getting into DMR. It isn't simple until you get your head around it. Once you get your head around it, it does become simple. I whizzed this code plug up in about an hour last night, and you can see it's quite a detailed one. I like the descriptives in the bottom there, which tells you what everything is. It just makes it a lot easier. So when you scrambling around for the first time and you look at, for example, what does channel frequency indication tone mean? You can click it, and it'll tell you exactly what it is. So I like that. And again, you can just sort of close these and open them as and when you need them. Once you've got everything you need programmed in, you can just click on program and click on write. Now because the USB USB programming cable is not a chipped one, you don't need to select your communication port. It's USB plug and play, so it'll automatically detect it. You can just click on read or write and it will do it. So really straightforward. Once the radio has got its data written to it, you can unplug everything and you're ready to go. Okay, so that's the radio programmed up. As you can see, quite simple. Once you get used to programming DMR radios, they do become a doddle. I used to really struggle with it myself, but now I find it easy. Every time I get one of these sort of DMR radios, I find it easy to get my head around programming. There is no display, as we've covered, so you've got to remember what your zones are assigned to. But again, just going back to the more commercial user on this, you're likely only going to have one repeater. If you're using this for security or an event, you're going to be using one repeater. So you'll just keep it on that repeater, lock it in, and just use your channel button there to go through the different channels. And if it's a small event or a small system, you're probably only going to use one channel as well. So it is one of them where you would probably need like a cheat sheet to refer back to, so you know where your zones and channels are. But I've got a few programmed into this. I think zone number 1 is my local DMR repeater, which is currently actually offline. Zone number 2 is Dmr Simplex. Zone number 3 is PMR 446. Number 4 is 70 centimeter repeaters, and number 5 is 2 meter repeaters. So quite simple, guys. Once you sort of remember what you've got in, I suppose it's no different than using a Bofeng BF888 style radio that's got no screen on it whatsoever. You've got to remember where your channels are. But as I say, it does appeal to that more commercial user. You lock it onto one repeater or one zone. You'd probably only have one zone programmed in it, and just keep changing the channel like so. Okay guys, so I hope you enjoyed that one. When this came through the post, I didn't really know what to expect with it having no screen, but I think after having a play around with it, I'm quite impressed. I sort of didn't understand at first how the logistics of this would actually work in terms of selecting your zones and channels, but once you have a play around with it and get into the programming, it is quite straightforward. It's nice as well to see another manufacturer of radios doing things towards the commercial market as well, and not just amateur radio. Of course, a lot of us are here for amateur radio, but it's nice to see some of these brands and these manufacturers getting into the commercial side of things. It helps them to obviously grow and obviously give us more products to choose from when we're looking at getting radios. So I think it's another tick in the box from Radioddity. It is very, very similar inside to the normal GD-77, but doesn't have the screen. And as I say, the GD-77 code plugs will work on this, so that is another positive. Anything you struggle with is in the manual. It's quite a thin and straightforward manual there, just for some top line information, and anything that's sort of more complex is in the programming software. And again, I think the prompts and sort of explanations in that software make it a lot easier to program. So yeah, let me know what you think, guys. If you have any comments, suggestions or feedback on this radio, then put them in the box below. I'll get back to you. I'm happy with it. I think it's nice and it feels chunky, feels solid, and I'm looking forward to doing some tests with this in an upcoming video. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and if you haven't already subscribed, then make sure you hit the subscribe button for more videos. We've still got stuff to get through on the pile behind, guys, so stay tuned for that. There's tons more coming on the channel, so make sure you keep checking back. If you haven't clicked the notification bell, then make sure you click that so you know when the video comes up. A few people have said that they've not seen the videos that I'm doing coming through on their feeds for some reason, so click the notification button, you'll get one when that comes through. And with that, I'll leave it there. 7-3 for now, guys. Thanks very much for watching. We'll catch you in the next one. Cheers.